All right, all right, all right. I think we are live. Cool. All right, let me refresh this and just make sure it's working on my end. Close a bunch of windows. Can you hear the nice country music in the background?
You know what? I was hearing it a lot before, and now I don't. So, like, whatever you did on the mic settings actually is very effective.
Probably just the mic.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think people are coming in here. Guys, if you can just let us know if you can hear us, see us, give us some likes or highs in the chat box there just so we can confirm that. That would be lovely. And then I am very curious about what Elon's going to share right now. So we'll give it like another minute just so people can jump on in here, and then we'll get rocking, okay?
Yeah.
Share this in our group also. Guys, also, if you haven't joined our personal development group in there, it's starting to really move. We have about 3,000 people or so in there, which is amazing. And yeah, we have some really cool stuff in there. A lot of the content that we do is in there. So it's called Personal Development Without the Fluff. It should also be tagged in this live post, so you can just hyperlink it right there and jump on. And then, bro, I guess whenever you're ready, if you want to share.
Yeah, we're good to go. Good to gizzo.
Yeah. To curious. Just sharing one more thing.
Okay, cool.
I'm ready when you are. Yeah. So Elon got on this call and said he's had one of the most amazing conversations he's ever had. So I have no idea what it's about, and I'm excited to hear it myself.
Yeah. It's amazing how we kind of use these as like catch up and growing and ascending and all that stuff on our own.
Totally.
So I love it.
Totally.
It's like people get to be fly on the wall for conversations that you and I would normally have in private.
Totally. It's our self-coaching platform called
Be
Live. Yeah.
It's so good. So yeah, I just want to start like really behind the scenes of this whole thing, because I want you guys to like share in this global conscious experience that I think's having, and I'd love your feedback on this, bro. Like, I feel like 2017, from my experience, and I think from even our clients' experience, really kicked people's asses. It was like a really challenging year, et cetera. And I almost feel like people in January were so excited to tap into this new energy that things have just been moving at crazy, like super fast unfoldings, right? Like, doesn't it? I mean, we just started March. Doesn't it feel like you've had a year's worth of experience already in just 2 months?
Yeah, this year. I mean, I feel like they all move uniquely fast. This one, when March hit, I was like, "How is it March already?" And yeah, I agree. It's like from the people I talk to who are in the know, and I think from a lot of personal experience, we would say that time seems to be compressing.
Yeah.
More is happening in less time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even look at media cycles these days and the Trump era of news. It's just like it's impossible to keep up, because like 17 new things happen a day that in the past would have like impeached a president immediately.
Yeah, they can't keep up anymore.
Yeah.
So that tapped in with I think for me, more and more this year is just leaning into ease and effortlessness. I think you and I spent 2017 kind of like honing in this new muscle and really tapping into that muscle. And this year has been really just like leaning even more into that and just accepting and surrendering to all of these parts of me that want to just get up and go and do and just listening to my body more and tuning in. And one of the things that I've really like every morning when I it really actually started when I started doing the Kundalini practice. But one of the things like in the gratitude portion and the thing that I call in is like, I'm constantly grateful for the people that have been showing up in our lives. Don't you feel like what's happened even just in this past year, like how people have out of the blue, someone like sends us a video or sends us a message, and all of a sudden you connect with them, and it's like this amazing being who's just kind of been like, I hate to use like lurking in the shadows, but like, you know, sitting in the back, and then you just come out and just like this massive expansion. And so honestly, this woman, Kelly, I don't even know how we connected. I know we were messaging back and forth on Messenger, but it was on some post, like we somehow connected. And she sent me this really beautiful message, and I just got called to, you know, go like, hey, let's connect. And whereas I can honestly say that even a year ago, I had this conversation like, my time is so valuable, I don't let these people in.
Mm.
Now where I'm at is I know that God or universe or energy, whatever you want to call it, like I know that when we came back from Colombia from last year, when I had that whole thing about like, I'm just going to shoot up this massive beacon of light, and those that are attracted to it will naturally come. I'm more and more feeling like that work is done. Mm. Not that I stop it, but like that beacon is out there. And the people that reach out, or we have these like synchronistic flows in connection, I just get to give time to. And it's not, whereas before it was like, I'm taking time away from my clients, I'm taking time away from my business, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. Like these things don't lead to anything. All these conversations, I've given all that shit up because I'm more and more tuning into the fact that like God has surprises in store for me every single day. And I just get to surrender. And if it's like, I get to chat with this person for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, like that's what I get to do that day. And it's not about having to be somewhere or having an agenda or like, it's just like, this is what I get to do. So I get on this call with Kelly purely with the like concept. I had a 30-minute block set up for her. And at the end of that 30-minute, I actually had another call with a potential client. And we get on this call, and like instantly I'm just like, who are you? Like this, you know, it was like, you know, when we talk to Michelle or you speak to Andrew, you're like in the presence of something and you're not quite clear what. And by the way, for all of you guys, it's like a huge ass teaser because we're going to bring her onto the podcast. For whatever reason, in the perfect way the universe works, our conversation today didn't get recorded. Had it been recorded, it would have been one of the most like, So we get on this call and like we're just sharing what we're up to, who she is, what she's at. And you guys will hear more of this on the podcast, probably in like a couple of weeks. So this woman at the age of, I believe it was either 4 weeks or 4 months, I don't remember because it was so early on in the conversation, basically had a near-death experience. And at that time connected to source. And when she came back to life, everything was activated. Every aspect of her was already activated. Intuitiveness, psychic abilities, receiving messages from source.
4 months?
4 months. I don't know if it was 4 weeks or 4 months, like really, really early.
Interesting.
Her entire life has been awakened. She didn't have an awakening experience. Like she was born awake, basically. And so what's interesting is like she's been living in this world where the world hasn't caught up to where she's been, right? Like even if in the last 5 years, if what we're seeing, it's like people are just being more and more open and calling this more and more into their lives. So all these people that just sat in the background for a long time as weirdos or like, you know, fucked up, whatever, are now people carrying torches of light and activating other people. And so she had these amazing cycles, and she'll tell you the whole story. But ultimately what she's doing now, after she was like doing readings for people and channeling by the time she was 9 years old.
Damn.
Yeah, like truly one of these just incredible beings. So
yeah,
what she's focused now is when she channels, she can like be with you and channel your soul, basically like your soul speaks to her and she just delivers those messages.
Yeah, she's doing an Akashic reading.
Yeah, but basically, well, not even Akashic reading. It's more like, so now where it's tuning into, like she would do this reading, and what would happen is your children would come to her. And so what she started to focus on is families, where she can go into families that have children. And for any of you guys that know, and like this is so my outlook, that my children are my greatest teachers. Like I am clear that these children that are coming down, you know, some people call them star children, are eons, like eons ahead of where we were, the souls, you know, even in the 30s and 40s, like eons. And so I'm clear these kids have more gifts, more intuition, like all the stuff. And she said something super interesting, which was, you know, people in like their 50s, 60s, 70s had a very, very different life than you and I have.
Yes.
In fact, people in like the 20s to 40s range, quote unquote, came in to reset certain timelines and perspectives of the world so that these star children can come into a different world with different conversations. Because imagine like star children coming in 50 years ago. It would have been a no event. Like people didn't have a listening for that kind of thing. Look what's been happening even in the last 5-10 years. So anyway, so that's what she's been focusing on. So we were just like connecting. All of a sudden she goes, by the way, do you want me to, your children are like, she's like, especially your daughter is like yelling in my ear. Do you want me to send you, like, give you some of these messages? And then the conversation started. And what started to be like a 30-minute, hey, let's get to know each other, ended up being this 2 hour. She gave me like a session.
Wow.
My effing God. Like, I can't even, I so wish I had it recorded, because no explanation or notes that I try to share with you guys will even touch how absolutely mind-blowing this was to me. Anyone that knows me, and I mean, you can say if you know this to be true, like one of my greatest passions and like things of mastery is fatherhood. It's like constantly how to learn more from them, how to show up for them, how to help them on their journeys. Like it is a, I want to say almost an obsession of mine, because it really is. Like I get that I grow in that, they get to grow in that space, etc. So the first thing she said, she doesn't know me from a hole in the wall. She doesn't know my kids from a hole in the wall, nothing. The first thing she said, she goes, Aaliyah is your eldest. And I was like, no, she's actually my youngest. She's like, oh no, she's your eldest. In fact, she's older than all of you. And I'm like, that is true. So Aaliyah's like, she has done this role many times. She is like the most magnificent manifester. Mm-hmm. And the first thing she said was, she was like, she is seriously princess. And I was cracking up. And she's like, let me just rephrase, princess, not in the way that you think princess, like princess as in like can move worlds, princess, like can do incredible things, princess. And her and Fanny have had multiple lifetimes where they like done this. Me and her are actually pretty new at this. Like we've had a few, but not many. And so one of the biggest things that like I took away was, you know, so this whole thing with her princess and being all this thing is a facade. It's like a game that she plays because she came here to teach me acceptance and to teach me acceptance of self. And so she, notice like how she spins us around her finger to create all this, like we just, for her 5th birthday, she got like a whole princess room. And she's like, internally, her soul is just laughing. Because she's trying to show you. And she's like, when you truly, like when you get the message of acceptance, the energy of acceptance, not accepting her, like an energy of acceptance, she goes, the facade will go away. She's using this now as a method to have you experience this in your life. And I'm like, wow. So then she shared like all these ways that I get to communicate with them telepathically. I mean, it was so wild. And I'll give you guys like bullet points because the whole thing of it was just, oh my God. Then, then with Shia, so both of them have this thing, and like I never heard this term. It's called bleed over. It's when souls. Do you know what that is?
I have a guess, but I don't know for sure.
So bleed over is like when a soul comes from another life into this physical, from soul world into physical form. Like as souls, we all have gifts, like things that we've collected and experienced and done in other lives. So you can bleed over certain things into your new life. Like it's like you don't forget everything. You just kind of come with like certain gifts and talents. It's called bleeding over. And so Shai, like in your experience of Shai, I'm sure is very similar, like super empathetic, like at a really, really high level where, you know, you don't really see kids like this. I mean, I'll give you an example. He was playing basketball this weekend, and the other team was like, his team was blue, the other team was white, and they were like, boo, blue, boo, blue. So he comes over, he's like, the other team's booing me. And literally he comes in, and the next play, one of his teammates like knocks down this kid, and it was kind of like a pretty aggressive hit, I guess. Shia walks over to this kid, hands him his hand, picks him up, shakes his hand, and I see him like tapping him kind of on his heart. And so afterwards, I was like, Shia, I have to tell you, I was as proud as I was of you scoring and like playing great. I have to tell you, the proudest thing was when you went and helped that kid. And he goes, oh, I just told them that, you know, he did a great job. He was being really tough, and I wanted to acknowledge him. And I was like, wow, like that's
yeah.
That's just him in a nutshell. It was like, you know, find the kid that's like feeling anything other than happy and elated, and like Shai is there too. So think about something in your life that when you were a kid, and this is what she said to me, think about something in your life when you were a kid, everyone was like, oh, you're so good at it. You're like, oh, you're you know, you're amazing at this. And you were like, yeah, it just comes so easy. Like, this is what I do. It wasn't anything. It was like a joke to you. It was like,
yeah.
Whatever.
You didn't understand why they were even acknowledging it.
Exactly. Yeah. So all these things that we've been looking at him as like, he's so gifted and intuitive and talented and all that stuff, like to him is child's play.
Yeah.
She's like, he's self-expressed right now at 3.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. She's like, he's self-expressed at 3. He wants to be self-expressed at an 11. And the fact that everyone keeps telling him like, oh, this is this, he's like bored with that because he knows he's got so much of this stuff like locked in, and we're not basically allowing it because we're just like have this persona like he's this, and this. So she was sharing with me like how I get to communicate with him, and it's not through like language like this. It's actually like through telepathy, like actually having like sent messages through silence to him. And she's like, watch, like you're going to do this and he's going to come back to you and say things that you've never heard before. Mm-hmm. He's going to like express like she said, it will be so obvious to you that it won't be questionable. It won't be like, whoa, it will be like, where the fuck did that come from? And you'll know exactly where it came from because you were the one that asked the question in the first place, and he will literally just walk over to you and like answer that question. So, yeah. So I'm going through this whole process, and here's kind of the punchline of all this. And like, this is where my mind was really just blown. Like, this is not to toot my own horn, but like, I feel like I'm a pretty good parent. Say it again.
Expanded.
What?
Mind expanded.
Yeah, mind expanded. I feel like I'm a pretty good parent, and I'm like very aware, and I know these kids have gifts and all that stuff. And like still all these beliefs, as good and positive as they were limiting. Mm-hmm. Right? Like created this whole amazing, powerful construct of my kids and my life and my parenthood and everything. And then today, the whole thing was just like, wow, I got to see how limited and how in a box I've been thinking about all of this. and what I'm capable of and what they're capable of and like who we are as humanity for each other and all this stuff. And it was just like someone, you know, that moment where someone just like shreds reality right in front of your face. And it's so palatable. Like she took me through an exercise where I literally, it was very similar to what Andrew does, but I was sitting there with my eyes closed. And right before she said this, like 5 seconds before she said this, she was saying, you know, now listen, because your daughter's going to come through. And 5 seconds before that, I already see like her face, like right here, but it wasn't her face. It was like her face. And I can see like the old woman's soul in there in a beautiful way. How do you say Israeli? What does that mean? Israeli. Israeli.
The children have come.
Perfect.
They've been summoned. They've been summoned through energy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Right. Like, so
summoned.
So she's like right in front of me, like right here, smiling, so happy, like happy in a way, like you finally got me. You finally see, like, this is me. Like, thank you. I can show myself to you now. And then she just reaches into my heart. And it was like Anaya, like just beamed acceptance and love into my heart to the point where I felt like, you know, when your body just energetically just expands like this. And she was holding it and holding it and holding it. And all I could hear her, she was like leaning in. She's like, Abba, receive this. Receive this. Receive this. And then she like hugged it, like hugged my heart, like from the inside. Like I started crying. Wow. And she's like, all right, acceptance has been activated inside of you. Like that, now you have energy of acceptance inside of you. So, man, so this is like, this is what I want to share. Like, this was a very personal experience to me. And again, she will be on the podcast. We're going to introduce you to, like, if you have kids, you need to speak to this woman. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I have an amazing relationship with my kids, and I realize I'm in a minority of maybe 3% that have that, right? Like 97% of the world struggles with their kids, this and that. And it, like, what she can do is just incredible.
Yep.
Here's what I want to, like, ultimately leave you guys with. This person manifested and showed up in my life. I didn't ask for it. I didn't intend it. There was nothing in my presence that was like, you know what? I need to work on my relationship with my kids. Nothing. Right? It's like an intention that I have constantly. Like but it's not like I didn't post somewhere like, hey, does anybody know anybody? Like, it was just truly like opening to God and the universe and being like, thank you so much for constantly sending me incredible people who help guide me. And that's it. And I'm like, continue to send them. I'm open. And then this shows up. And I just like, I sat there today. My soul was smiling on the inside because it was like, this is how you get to live life. Like, we will just send you the things that you need, when you're ready. And it was, dude, like vibrating, just fucking vibrating today. It was just incredible.
Well, what I love about what you're sharing is that whether your viewpoint is positive or negative, however it is that you're pointing at it, it's still a view. It's still some kind of container. And ultimately, even positive points of view, like positive intentions, can have unwanted outcomes. Yeah. Because it's like you're still telling your son, oh, you're really good at this, you're really good at this, you're really good at that. You're not actually like letting his soul naturally arise. It's like you're trying to guide, and look, to an extent, right? Parents are a little bit of Sherpas and guides. I'm not saying anyone could like get out of that. And it's like being aware of like your desires and wants for your children may very well be pulling them off their spiritual and soul path.
Yeah.
And just having that awareness so that you notice it, and then kind of like check in with yourself. Is it coming from ego? Is it coming from my alignment that this is coming, right? Like, because obviously they chose this family, if they like, big workers are going to choose specific families that are going to encourage the gifts versus being like, magic's not real or imagination, stop doing that, right? Like all that kind of stuff that would just defeat the purpose of that soul. So it makes sense.
And one other thing just came through that she said. So like one of the things that even this past weekend has become like a little bit tense was this whole iPad issue. Like Shia has just shown this addiction to be on iPads. And to the point, like he started lying about it, where he would like sneak down, take it, bring it into his room in the morning, etc. And I saw that he was lying, and I gave him an opportunity to clean it up. He didn't. I asked again. He didn't. So like he did this 4 times, and finally like I went up. I was like starting to walk up into the room. He's like, yeah, it's up in my room. So I walked over to him. I'm like, dude, why did you lie? Like I'm not going to get mad at you, right? Like I want to just have an open conversation with you. And she said something so interesting. She's like, because afterwards, like I got the thing and I basically found this app through the iPad that you can like lock down the iPad after like a set amount of time. So she's like, he doesn't listen to your words. He interacts with you at your soul level, and he interacts at the energy behind the thing. So she's like, notice, he knows that you said all the right things, but to him, it occurred like bullshit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you still took away the privilege. So like he came back like later on in the day and apologized for lying and all this stuff. But like at the end of the day, you still stopped him, right? From like getting that thing that he wants. So she's like, there's this way that we get to communicate with kids, especially these kind of kids that we're not accustomed to necessarily. And it's much more in this like energy work that you and I have been training people on and tapping into and stuff like that. Man, like I'm still very much in like the integration and processing of everything that I witnessed. I just cannot believe that it wasn't recorded. So I like took down as many notes as I can, and I'm still kind of like in the process of it, but like
profound impact.
Yeah,
kind of like when you talk to Anna, right? Like very different point of view. And as I say, Anna likes our video. Wow, in real time.
Yeah,
yeah, that happens all the time.
So
that's so funny.
Look, I mean, I personally believe, like, I don't know how many of you guys are listening on the Facebook Live or how many guys listen on podcasts, but I can tell you because I've had a bunch of conversations with people that took applications recently to be working with us in one capacity or another. I have to tell you that like more than 50% of the people that I communicate with have in one way, shape, or form been like, I'm so grateful that I called you into my life. Right? Like I'm so clear that my soul requested for us to meet. And I am so clear that every single being that shows up in our life, not only the ones that inspire you, like, you know, Guy and Elon and Satori Prime might inspire you. There are people that really fucking piss you off. You called them into your life too. And it's so beautiful when you start to look at the world like from that gift of we are so connected and the people show up in our lives exactly when we're ready. Honestly, if this girl showed up even 2 years ago, I would have been like, you are batshit crazy. Like I wouldn't have the listening for it. She even said, she's like, I just know that like now is that time. Like now is the time that we get to work on something. So yeah, it was just marvelous. And I'm in this like state of so much gratitude for these experiences continuing to show. And I got off the call and I just stood there. I was like, yes, more of those, please. Like that's how I want to vibrate. I want to get off of calls and vibrate like that. I want to be in communication with people like that stretch what I can comprehend as the veil of reality, quote unquote. And just tap into these like, dude, I had an ayahuasca-like feeling and I'm just standing here in my office. You know, it's like, wow.
Those are about to come much in more frequency because boy, do I have a lot to share with you.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tell you, you don't need to desire that. You already are that.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. There's nothing to want or desire to even bring in. It's like, hey, you already have evidence with your 5 senses, 6 senses, mind being the 6th one. you already have the proof, and you don't need that.
Yeah.
I think what you're starting to see, and I'm going to talk about it too, is a practice of self-referencing, right? We reference externality to validate experiences that we're having, and it's a switch I get to see that I get to make. That's just not necessary anymore. I actually don't need to look out to the world to validate anything that I believe or anything about my abilities or my practices. So, yeah, I can relate on so many freaking levels, dude. The last 2 weeks of my life have been, well, let me just say this. I think the last 48 hours of my life are on par with enjoyment as probably the last 2 days we had down in Colombia last year. And so Elon knows what that means, because I would say those were probably the two most joyful days of my entire life, and in a different way. And I want to tell you why, but I'm gonna lead up to that story. So I'll open that loop for everybody. Hopefully, keep you here, because I want to share some really incredible things. In the last 2 weeks, I've talked to African mystics. I've sat in a crystal bed with a woman who channels angels for 2 hours. I was with a woman who can go into your quantum fields, DNA, unconscious programming, and literally pull it out of you, and did for me and for Mandy. Then went to go work with this energy healer who taught me something that may have put together 34 years of living for me into one of the most important experiences that I've ever had to date for my ongoing growth. Seriously, like I've you know, when you just know you're looking for something, you don't know what you're looking for, but when you identify, you're like, oh,
like the bell goes off.
It wasn't just the bell going off. I could see my entire life and the issues that have propagated themselves throughout it, and why I didn't even know. Like, I haven't even been close to resolving the things that I wanted to resolve, because I like this perspective, and it's not a perspective. It's like, these days when I say perspective, I literally mean a frequency shift in my body. I don't care what my mind learns anymore. Like, logic has its application. I wouldn't be able to cross the street, right? Otherwise, but it's like, it has taken a large back seat to what I'm looking for these days. So really quick, like last Thursday, Marcia was such an angel, and she put together this event with this woman, Sandra, and her husband. And Sandra's also near-death experience, came out of it lit. And what she does is kind of what I described. So, you know, I'm bullet pointing probably something that has no language. But to my understanding, she can go to your quantum field, your Akashic records, your unconscious, past lives, all of it. And what she does that's really cool is all this is being channeled through her. Like, she's just getting information about you and how to clean you out, basically. But what she does is she puts your hand up like this, and she does a kinesiology test in real time on everything she's doing, so she can show you how you test strong, test weak, test strong, like how it's changing in real time with what she's doing to you. So it's really cool to watch. So I've gotten many readings in the past before where people tell me that I was a high priest of some kind in the church. You know, you've heard the story, and that I found it to be kind of dogmatic and this and that. So I kind of leave and wander and seek truth. And this is the theme of my life, is like this like knowledge, wisdom wanderer who like seeks truth. Basically, it's very much carried on. So every time I've gotten the reading, there's something that really resonates very heavily for me about it. Now, I've always had this like aversion that's shifted a lot over the last few years because of plant medicine work and things that I've experienced about God and spirit and all these different things. But there's like this thing that won't move in there, and it's come up for me a lot over the last few months. Like, why, you know, what are you hanging on to? Like, 'cause mentally I feel like the understanding is there, but you know, the switch hasn't happened internally. So I get up there, and she goes, yeah, so you were one of the highest priests in Islam, and you know, like basically just goes into past life, so she can test if what you're dealing with is mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, or like lineage or some, you know, like a whole bunch of list of things. And she quickly will tell you which one is, and then test you, so you can see that you're testing strong or weak for all of them. So this issue for me was all of them. Like, wow. It's in every little, like every place, like past, like everything. Like, I'm way behind the cue ball and trying to work on this, because it's like, it doesn't matter what you go to, nothing's going to put it together, all together for you. So she tells me this story, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like a high priest in Islam, and I go there, and these men come, and they don't just kill me, and it's like, actually saying this, I could feel the swords going into my body, like, you know, the energistic swords. And she goes, but they also killed everybody who followed you. So your whole life is about wanting to find truth, and you want to help so bad, but there's an unconscious fear that if they follow you, they're gonna like it's unsafe.
Wow.
So you're gonna always seek to be alone, because it's like even if they get close and there's something for you to teach, like you'll feel like there's too much risk for them.
Wow.
So I mean, she's saying this and she tells me, of course you can't trust God because like that whole path led you here and all this kind of stuff. I just start crying because she's saying it. It's just hitting all the buttons. And she's like, I got it. She's like, I'm just going to clear it out of you. So she goes into your spinal column. She pulls it out of the quantum field. She goes into your DNA. She pulls it out. And within like 15 seconds, you're just grinning from ear to ear like an idiot. And you have no idea why, because she's removed the program that's basically been, doing this. And again, like, how do you go to past life and cure these things? So it's like good to have someone. That's why I told you and Fanny to come to the event, by the way, because I saw her do it to me and I saw her do it to a handful of people. And then the other thing is like whatever that story is, that lineage is, that's your script. So you've been giving that script to everybody in your life to read, and everyone's bought in, right? Like everyone's enrolled into your script. So it's like your significant other has to be a match for that script. Do you get that?
Yeah.
So she goes, whoever you're with has a story that they can't be loved. Because if you have to be alone, the only person that would have take that story is somebody who their story is I can't be loved. So she goes, where is she? Brings up Mandy, same thing, clears her out, like does the whole thing. And it was amazing, right? So that was just sensational. Again, why I said you guys should just, even if it's just for 3 days, come out, because these people are just showing up more and more readily. It's kind of fun. Like I feel like we have like this like pick your own adventure, but we just have like ascended masters all around us. Yep. Anyway, I won't go into a lot of the science here, but she very, very special to be around her. The day after, there's this guy out here, David, who a lot of my friends have worked with. I know his work is really complementary to what we do with Andrew. And I've never had like really any rub about going to him. I wanted to go. I was like, yeah, whenever it shows up, it'll show up. So sure enough, I go there on the next morning after this whole thing had happened, this Friday afternoon. And by the way, I have like 15 other stories in between these two of things that have happened. So I'm like really skimming over like some things that were becoming present for me in real time, like that were leading me to these people. Like I just see the thread. I'm like, oh, I have this thing. And then like, of course I show up and the person's like, all right, so here's what's going on. I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about for 2 straight weeks, like what's in my space. Anyway, so David also went from like, and this is what we're starting to see, right? Just like with entrepreneurs, they hit year 3 and they go parabolic. It's like spirituality is it's just doing its thing. Like none of us have to do anything. It's this very organic, beautiful process that's happening. Had this like awakening experience and gets a download instantaneously about how to train people to put the energy. Like I don't really know how to describe it. I'll say like put your energy into alignment so that you're not referencing the outside world. So what's been happening to me, and this is like psychedelic experiences for as long as I can remember. I mean, 34 years of as long as I can remember, I'm overwhelmed like crazy. Like Elon knows if I get overwhelmed, I'm like, yeah, you don't want to be around. It's like I'm not present. I'm like, I it's like I lose my conscious state. And the truth is, in my body, like how it's felt for a really long time is incredible amount of pressure in my chest and just knots in my stomach. And I get reprieve from this not often at all. Like I've just kind of like learned to live with it, like an ailment. Like
living with it, like a Band-Aid on it, but not ever.
Well, you don't even know you're living with it when you've never lived any other way. It's just been the way that life has been. And it's hard for me to explain why I have to there's certain things that I'll let you deal with in the business. Like, I don't want to have that conversation with somebody, you know what I mean? And then it's like, I really want to have that conversation with them. And it's like not coming from a great place. Like that response, I know why it's going on now. Like at the energetic level of my body. So he does this amazing thing for you that they basically use this. It's called the Harrison test. And it's like to tell you like what positions you'll be good at job wise. Okay. But he uses it as a psychological frame to show you how you operate with people. Okay. And then he shows you this methodology. Okay. Super simple. But basically what he explained to me is like, he's like, your emotional body is just out here and your field is so big. And, I've known this about some people, but I never really considered myself this person. I know I'm sensitive. I know what's going on for people. He goes, but it's so big. He goes, you're just absorbing everybody's stuff. And as I've told you this before, I go into rooms, it's just like, I'm just like processing for everybody. It's really fucking overwhelmed. That's why I never like going to parties with a lot of people. Like why I was always a wallflower, why Vipassana was heaven on earth for me. Cause it's like, they're all processing. You get that? No one's outputting over there. So for me, it's like heaven on earth because my system can calm the fuck down, which is why I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to be home. I just never get to be home. So he's like, he basically shows me how to lift my emotional body away from my experience and then lock it. Just lock it so it's no longer in my space. Because before I'm it's not like I'm wanting this. It's just coming in. It's just coming in, like where I can't stop it. Moment I locked it, he goes, now sit here. He goes, this is how 90% of the world feels. And I'm dead at peace and feel no feedback. Everything in my chest goes away. Everything in my stomach goes away nearly instantaneously. And I'm sitting there going like, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, this is how everybody else feels. He goes, you're just on. He goes, you're just on all the time and you have no idea. So then he's like, all right, here, now we're going to open the heart, the solar plexus, right? So we open that up. And then he's like, just notice that there's energy starting coming through your crown, starting coming through your ground, and you just feel like the light energy. And he literally goes, see how in the center, like you feel how it's in alignment? He goes, now go like this, and it's like moving out of a magnetic field. Moving in, moving out, moving in, moving out. Okay? And then he's like, well, what's going on in your life right now that's a struggle? So like the cats come to mind, and like something in a different relationship came to mind. He goes, now look, instead of just opening the system, he goes, invite that into the way that the system is now. He goes, what do you see now? And it's like, just clarity, just right away clarity, because you're not referencing the outside world anymore. You're like, basically I've been referencing everything all the time to see how I'm doing, right? So because that's just what happens when your body's open all the time. And then it's like, you don't even need that. It's all being self-referenced. So within a session, I basically like picked up on immediately how to just balance that. So this is amazing because for me, like, I've never gone out in public and not been overwhelmed, like with very few things. And it's like, I didn't even know to what extent, because I didn't know that there was another way to be. So like he just taught. Yeah, I didn't know it. So now I just have the frequency in. I could just do it whenever I want. And it's like, most of the day, I would say yesterday, about 90% of the day it's on. It's not like I have to effort this to be on, but it's like now I actually get to choose what's in. So I'm not experiencing overwhelm like nonstop, which is basically what's been happening for 34 fucking years. Wow. Like I talked to dad and, like things that you would usually trigger me. I'm like, yep, nope, we're good. It's all been just that overwhelm of the environment. So I have like a bunch more sessions with him. So I'm really curious about what that's going to open up. But like this ability, and that's what he teaches. He teaches this alignment method. And then I'm sure there's like a whole bunch of other ways to, use it and see through. He's just so advanced with it that I'll get to learn, which is amazing. But he changed my life overnight. Like we went out this whole weekend. Like every interaction I had was like night and day from any experience I've ever had, minus like doing really extreme things with psychedelics and then having like a few days of this or like a few weeks of this or maybe even a few months of this, but having no idea how to stabilize it. He basically gave me the keys. He gave me the keys to the castle. Wow. So it's the same day. We're still like in that Friday, and Mandy and I went to go see the movie Annihilation. Okay. And before that, we went to a legal dispensary, and we actually got some edibles. We decided we're going to do like edibles at this movie theater. So I can say that now because it's fucking legal. Well, no, I would say it anyway. I would say it anyway, and it's fucking legal. The funny part about going to one of these places, by the way, is that everyone still looks like they're doing something criminal. Like the psychology, the psychology is not there, so everyone's kind of like not looking at each other. But there's an amazing diversity of people, which was really cool to see. So we go to these movies, and by the way, Annihilation. Super cool movie, super artsy. If anybody's seen Ex Machina and you like that work, like worth a watch for sure. I'm just going to let you know right now that there are two very violent, very disturbing scenes, like things I don't want to see again with my eyes. So like if you saw The Revenant, which was a great movie, but that bear scene, like you never want to experience that again. There are two of those in this movie. If not as bad, probably worse. Like the second one, I literally closed my eyes. I'm like, I don't need to see this with my eyes. Wow. But other than that, it was a really fantastic movie, very original, super artsy and beautiful, and just unique. And at the end of it, we're driving home, and right as I get home, Mandy opens the door and she goes, "I had a premonition while we were driving." She left. She was on the spaceship while we were driving home, basically. And she has this premonition. We go inside, and I'm like, all right. She goes, I need the music you were just playing. She goes, I can go back there. She's like, we're going to access this place. And these certain very spiritually high experiences that we've had on psychedelics activate without this, right? So she starts going into her place. And I'm like, all right, so I just learned this whole alignment thing, and I've never like went into deep meditation with it before. So like I go into this deep meditation with it, and suddenly I'm able, because it's helping me have contrast to feel my energy field. So now I can feel like energy in my hands as if they're solid objects, like, and I could push it. But like the way I was moving energy towards her in a way that I've never experienced before, not on psychedelics, not anything, to be honest. Then I go lay down. We had this conversation, so I'll do my best to kind of like summarize it here in these last 10 minutes of this call. I had this sense, and you guys can kind of see if you can model this onto yourself, because I feel like I could teach this. I just know that I'm not quite at a place where I'm capable of teaching it, where I noticed that everything that I do has doubt attached to it. It's like if you were to take what you can do and put it into like a little energy bubble, it's almost like it's got this little hook of a parasite in it. And the parasite's this frequency of doubt that's always there. So it's like you get on the webinar, you know you can deliver value, but there's doubt. You're building a company, you know you can deliver, but there's doubt. You know you want to get the best shape of your life. You know you can do it, but there's doubt. And there's always this little lingering fucker of doubt in there. So I start experiencing this doubt as this like parasite frequency on there. And what I suddenly notice, it visualizes itself into like a branch of a tree, right? Like the synapse in the brain, you know how it's just all this web. But what I see is that I'm looking at this tree, but the bark, like the meat, the fascia that's holding it together, it's just energy. It's like energy bark. What's holding it together is me. I could see like I see like the muscle tissue, the fascia that's around it, and I get that it's just resistance. And it's like a hand that's resisting opening because it needs to keep holding on to what this thing is. And I think to myself, I think I can open those hands. And I start like telling my body, I'm like, release that. And I release it, and it metabolizes. And this happened to me in Vipassana one time, where like the back of my head opened up, and it felt like sand was falling down my spine for like 3 hours. But this was this experience amplified and all and everywhere through my body. So it starts like the little points. So I go to like my chest, and I see like, oh, okay, yeah, there's something holding on to it, but it's me. It's this doubt frequency resistance, and I'm like, I'm gonna let go of the doubt, and I'm gonna let this thing experience, and it metabolizes. And then I go somewhere else in my body, come back to my heart, find the next layer of my heart. And I can't start doing this, and it starts amplifying itself through my entire body, neural network, into my organs, into my bone structure. And this is like, just go in there, guys, and check that anything you feel in your body, you're the one causing it. It's not even happening by itself. You're actually holding together and giving the energy this like path to move through. And I just, in that state, had this really high awareness of it and started letting it go. And this went on for like 3 or 4 hours. So I'm like, just going through this massive release process. Felt really beautiful, really fluid, and it's something I don't feel it quite as deeply as I felt it that evening, and it's something I can still absolutely do, because like now anywhere where there's sensation in my body, I get that I'm just the one creating it, and there's this really beautiful experience, and it's partly what we've been teaching. I think what I've been kind of or continue to like look for and have aptitude in is finding language for these little frequencies that you're hanging on to, so that we all have access to it and start being like, oh yeah, I could see that there's doubt there, but it's not doubt, it's just a frequency, right, that you're associating with doubt. And so, dude, I like healed my heart, my everything in my stomach, like my brain, like my entire, like the next morning, I was a little bit like iboga. Like I got up and I'm like, I had vertigo and stuff. It was like my body and my, like things weren't in sync because I had done so much in one evening that my body's like, what the fuck is going on? Like I got up, I was kind of like wobbly for a few hours, all sorts of stuff. I haven't felt this good maybe in my entire life. Wow. Maybe when we came out of Colombia last year. So it's like her and I, and it's funny, like a lot of you guys don't know the story, maybe because I haven't told it. When I was in Colombia last year, I started feeling Mandy. I started feeling her vibration. And I knew that I was going to meet her soon. I thought it was like going to be really soon. And I said before my birthday, we met in June, which was like, I came back from another trip and we met. And one of the things I wrote down was, I don't know. I know that we're not just supposed to meet. We're supposed to activate each other. There are things that we can't do on our own as far as personal work until we meet one another. And since we've met, it's just been like parabolic ascension, like energy gifts coming online. So it's been really amazing. And it's just like how this is happening. So the last thing I want to stay on here, like hopefully that gives some insight into it. I'm still going to keep looking at it as I kind of like grow my understanding. And then if I can articulate this properly, hopefully for some of you guys, that was really useful about the doubt piece. So the cat situation, right, has been just prominent in my life for like 2 years. And it's like, it's like Stockholm Syndrome. It's like, you love this thing and it's just the worst. And for you guys that don't know, like I've had cats in my house that at some point started this behavior because of a female cat that lived there for a short period of time, where they were like defecating all over my house, and it's been going on for like 2 years. So you can imagine like coming home every single day knowing that something's in your house. I've tried everything from like psychics to behaviorists to calling humane societies everywhere, and it's like everything has just been roadblocks, like nothing works. And like a month ago, I was just like, I'm trapped. Like I have no way out. Like the things that I was waiting to like the last minute to do, like, hey, if it gets to that point, like here are the things that are gonna get me out of this. When I went and started researching them, immediately they were like, no, we can't do that for you. No, we can't do that for you. Sorry, we can't help you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like stuck with the situation, right? Like so like kill shelter is not an option for me. And they're really healthy cats. Like there's a possibility this could go on for another 10 years for all I know. So you can imagine the state. So I was like, you know what? I'm done doing anything. I'm like, but here's the thing. I'm like, I need help. Like literally, I'm like looking up. I'm like, I need help. I'm like, you got to send me someone. And I didn't put any definition on it, but it's like, you have to get in this situation. I wouldn't let the guys go without telling somebody what was happening in the house, right? Like I'm going to have that integrity. And I was like, I don't know under what circumstance somebody would take these two. And I wanted them to go together. I'm like, but somebody like help me. I put up an ad on Craigslist. A few people reached out. I felt no vibration there whatsoever to move forward with that. But this one guy rings me up. And then we had this conversation. I tell him everything that's happened in the house. He goes, yeah, I want them. So he ends up being this 61-year-old retired man who lives by himself, had 2 cats, similar to these guys.
I got to run.
No worries.
Okay. I love you. Finish the story, though. It's amazing.
Yeah. Love you, guys.
Hi, Shai. I love you too, buddy. Have a great day. I love you.
I'll be on the call with you in a bit.
Cool. Yeah. So, ends up being the 61-year-old guy, retired, who lives at home. We had 2 cats that just passed away like in the last few months. You could tell he just wants companionship, and he's kind of like, I don't even know how to say, kind of like a tow truck driver, where you'd imagine that. But when he talks about cats, he just gets like giggly and smiley and just like lights him up. You could tell like it's passion. So he came over on Saturday, and it felt really good. So he actually took him to his house, and for the first time in 2 years, in 11 years, I don't have my guys. And of course there's a lot of nervousness around it, and there's fear and all sorts of other things. But like, he's been so sweet the last few days. He kind of like gives me the check-in and all this kind of stuff. And I could just tell how much he loves them already. And on the opposite side of it, like I felt in my heart that there would be like, obviously sadness, but there would also be relief. And like any other relationship, when it's over, it just creates a lot of space for newness. And it's been amazing to come home for the last few days and just not have to have that worry. So it's been, it's been really powerful. And it's like, his circumstances, he has a backyard for them, all these other really beautiful things. Like, I don't know that I could have made that happen or sought that out or anything else like that. And it's just time and time again, the lesson is to just surrender to what's happening, ask for help, but not from like the ego, the way it asks, almost just like opening up for assistance more than like having to define what that assistance is. And then allowing for the universe to come through, God, big mind, whatever you want to call it, to come and just support you in what helps you. I had to get to a point with these guys where I was able to surrender to even allow for that energy to come through. So it's just been, like you guys can hear, a magical few weeks. It's been a really magical year in that way. Like, this has been a really mystical year so far. And I mean that it like mystical gets to be our seriously our default state life. Like magic gets to be your default state life. This is not something we need to work for. Certainly not hard. It's just opening up to these energies and these frequencies. And amazing things happen. So I'll cut it off there, guys. And thank you for joining us today. Hopefully these stories inspired you and you learned a thing or two. I'm going to keep looking at what's opening up for me in my life. And as it develops, like always, we'll be sharing it here on these Facebook Lives and other pieces of content we put out there. Guys, we love you. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week on here. Take care.